All right, so I have been lying in bed watching this morning's testimony by Johnny Depp. No makeup on, messed up hair, whatever, but I'm going to go ahead and make a video because I want to tell you, while they're on a break, I want to tell you how I think he's doing so far today. This is his main day of testimony. He did start testifying yesterday. You can see my video that I put out last night about how I thought he did. So today, overall, I would say if I had to give a score to how things are going today, I would say probably I would give it. I would give him and his lawyers maybe a B plus A minus. I think he's doing a great job of describing how his relationship with Amber Heard developed, what his thought processes were along the way. I thought he gave just a really great depiction of what life is like with someone who has a personality disorder, who has a toxic personality, narcissism, BPD, whatever. Um, and so he talked about how, like, when he would get into arguments with Amber, that they would become very sort of Byzantine, right? Very much like getting into a kind of a maze or a game. He said she would pop off, rapid fire comments and rapid fire, yelling and stuff, and that she would take the discussions, no matter how well intentioned or how diplomatic he approached them, she would take them and would twist them into all of these tangents, and it would become kind of this circular hell. And if you've ever dealt with someone who has a personality disorder, particularly something like BPD, then you know that is a very apt description. He also talked about how over time, as she became more and more aggressive, more and more abusive, that over time, he said that the boundaries, the lines between what was acceptable and wasn't, became blurred so often that he said finally there were no lines. He said the lines kept getting blurred, and then finally there were no lines. And you do get the sense of this sort of deterioration of their relationship as she becomes more and more unhinged and more abusive. I thought that Johnny Depp's style overall, again today, has been effective. He's so slow and so gentle, and the words come out so slowly, and that it's really difficult to imagine this man as violent. And in fact, even the kind of the rambling at times, and the sort of sense that he's a bit at times discombobulated, that actually feeds into the idea that this is a man who's not necessarily always on top of things or on top of himself, and that someone, a very opportunistic, manipulative woman who's really sharp, could come in and could manipulate him and could abuse him and take advantage of him. So I understand the feeling that the rambling at times, or his storytelling style, and his kind of going off on these sort of mild detours, sometimes extensive detours, that can be frustrating. But I do think overall that his style is still working for him. Ideally, I would, at this point, I think today would have been a good day to start reining in the rambling a little bit. But whatever, I think it's working. I think it's working well. Now, I have several problems, several critiques so far of the testimony. I think, look, maybe Johnny Depp has not had a drug and alcohol problem really beyond the opioid addiction that he says he dealt with. I find that hard to believe. I was watching Legal Bites again today, and one of the lawyers brought up the fact that if you look at, Kipper's notes and Kipper's testimony, and what we've learned outside of Johnny Depp's testimony, that it seems to indicate that this is someone who has a larger addiction problem across the board. And so I don't know where the truth lies in that. I would love to see your comments, and maybe there's some stuff that I'm missing here, because I haven't been watching this whole trial or this whole process these last years as closely as some of you have, and I'll admit that. I didn't like he spent a lot of time talking about this issue of drinking, and almost kind of it comes off as almost trying to excuse it or explain it. And again, maybe he really is not an alcoholic and really doesn't think of himself as an alcoholic, but he sure drinks a lot of wine. And I understand a lot of alcohol, and and he's talked about before how much red wine he buys, and I just and I just something about the way that he discusses his alcohol use, it seems a little slippery to me, and it seems like there's a bit of denial going on. And, he describes these scenarios where Amber Heard would drink alcohol, but she would freak out if he was drinking. And then he talks about a dinner that they went to where he wanted to have a glass of champagne and she freaked out over that. Well, knowing what I know about Amber Heard, I would definitely tend to side with Johnny on whatever disputes they're having, because we know that she's manipulative. We know that she's irrational. We know that she is crazy. But at the same time, it's very easy to see that if someone had an alcohol problem, that their spouse might be rightfully upset if that person, decides to have just a glass of wine. That's kind of the mantra of addicts, right? Just one more hit, right? Just one more glass. And so I just don't know why so much time was spent. And again, maybe there's something I'm not thinking about or seeing, but I just don't know why so much time was spent in this trying to explain away Johnny Depp's what sounds like a very significant alcohol habit that Johnny Depp has had over most of his life. Is that addiction? Is it not? He says he would go off alcohol for years at a time. He said that when he was with Amber Heard, he would go off of it for months. So I don't know, but something about that just didn't sit exactly right with me. And I don't think that really damages his case or anything. But also, he talks about how Amber Heard withheld his medication from him when he was in withdrawal from the opioids. They went to his island. He was going to withdraw there. And the idea was that he had this regular schedule of medication that he could take that would help him, supposedly help ease him through the withdrawals. I don't know what kind of medication that is. I would assume it's something like an opioid replacement, a replacement opioid like Suboxone, where they, if you go to rehab, they'll taper you during rehab generally off of, put you on Suboxone and then taper you off of it quickly. Andrea Burkhart, I asked her if she knew what medications he was on for withdrawal, and she said that Suboxone was not on the list, that phenobarbital had been on the list. So I don't know what they were giving him or supposed to give him or whatever, but I thought that it was perplexing why so much time was spent talking about Amber Heard withholding his withdrawal medication until a specified time. Because I would imagine that when you were in withdrawal, there is a very specified schedule of when you're supposed to get your medication. And so to me, it almost sounds, and again, I'm just coming at this from a devil's advocate perspective, and also from the perspective of a juror who might not know the whole history of how crazy Amber Heard is. But to me, it sounds very plausible that this man was in withdrawal and he was doing what a lot of people in withdrawal do. And it's understandable, but they whine and they beg to get relief ahead of when they're supposed to, right? Oh, just give it to me now. Just give it to me now. So to me, was was Amber Heard, was she torturing him and abusing him by deliberately withholding medication that he was supposed to have or could have? Or was she sticking to the schedule that the doctor and the nurse had agreed with her ahead of time was going to be the schedule? To me, that seems plausible. So I don't know why so much time was spent on this. I don't think it helps Depp. Another thing that I have a problem with, I don't feel like that Depp's lawyers are asking him the types of questions to give the jury a clear enough picture of how extensive or pervasive or frequent Amber Heard's abuse of Johnny Depp was. We're hearing obviously the story about the finger getting sliced off by the vodka bottle is significant and terrible, right? Obviously, putting the cigarette out on the cheek is significant and terrible. Obviously, all of the verbal belittling, that is significant and that's terrible. However, my impression, just having kept up with this whole saga for a couple of years now, off and on, my impression was that the abuse that Amber meted out to him was much more constant. That she was frequently hitting him, frequently slapping him. And I feel like it would strengthen Johnny Depp's case if his lawyers would ask him some very like targeted, specific questions and would try to hold him to answering those questions and not rambling, just so that we could get a very specific sense of the degree of the abuse overall. In other words, Mr. Depp, how often would you say Amber Heard would strike you? How often would she hit you or punch you? What was the nature of your abuse? Can you describe how often these things would happen? Because what it's kind of sounding like is, yes, this was at times a mean, manipulative woman who would lose it at times and do terrible things. And I'm not downplaying that at all, and that might be enough, right? But I feel like they could really lean more into giving us a clearer picture of the pervasiveness and the frequency and the depth of this abuse, not just giving us a few stories or sort of some general musing about the abuse, but like very targeted and specific and almost in a sort of a clinical way. I guess, I just think that would be helpful. But overall, I think, like I said, overall, I think this is an A-B+ performance. I thought yesterday was strong, and I would anticipate, the rest of Depp's testimony is going to be strong. The cross-examination is where I'm going to be really holding my breath, because I do think that there are a number of avenues that a good cross-examination could take. Now, we have not seen Elaine capable of a good cross yet. But if the other guy, what's his name? I'm blanking on it now. Anyway, whatever his name is. If the other cross-examination, the other lawyer who does the cross-examinations for Amber Heard, if he does it, we might see Depp's taking some hits. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. But yeah, so far I think that Depp's testimony is overall going well. There are some weak spots and so forth, but hopefully if he finishes up well, then this will be a really helpful part of his case. And we can always hope that Amber Heard comes across really unlikable in her testimony. One more thing on the topic of likability, that little comment that Depp made about the other lawyer and the cross-examination. I don't know if how many of you heard that. It was very brief, but he made a little quip when Amber Heard's lawyer objected to something that Depp said. And then the judge asked Johnny Depp's lawyer to rephrase it. And Johnny Depp, before the lawyer rephrased it, Johnny Depp said something like, "Oh, so he can just object to that question too?" It came across very snippy, very entitled, very self-entitled, very hostile. And of course, I understand where those feelings are coming from. I would be feeling so pissed if I were Johnny Depp. But we don't need any more of that, Johnny Depp. And if you're listening, I don't need to hear anything like that come out of your mouth again, because it's not good for you. All right. Okay. So far, like I said, overall, I think I would give this performance, like I said, an A-. Like a 90. So we'll see if we can, and if Johnny Depp's lawyers, and Johnny can get it up from there. But, I'd say that anything over a 90 is really good for him, because I don't see Amber Heard doing well, in her testimony or under cross. So he has to be better than her, and he has to be more likable than her, and he has to seem more honest than her. And I think he's doing those things. All right. I'm going to see y'all after the close today, and I'll be giving you my impressions of the second half, and hopefully looking better. But I made a commitment to myself when I started my channel, because I knew what an undertaking it was going to be, that I would not let the perfect be the enemy of the good. And I knew there were some days I was just going to look like shit, and that would have to be. So it is what it is. But yeah, y'all have a good day, and I will talk to you a little bit later on. Bye.